Hey everyone. So I've decided to make a video because I think I stumbled across something that might help a lot of people, particularly sorcs and other tunes that were utilizing the off-balance debuff. With Dragon Bones, Zos made changes to the off-balance debuff. What they did is they made a cooldown for 15 seconds after an enemy is set off balance, and they are set off balance for 5 seconds. During that time, your regen is doubled, but that's only when the targets are off balance. So then for 15 seconds, they're immune. And if you were an off balance build, particularly sorcs who use unstable wall of storms and liquid lightning, all of that shock damage was increased by 10% because of the champion point passive. So if you've parsed, or you've probably noticed by now that your DPS has gone down on your sorc. And I lost like 4K, and it was really sad. So I decided to dig around and find out what I could do to change my playstyle and bring my DPS back up. One thing I did was I got the Constellations add-on because I wanted to see my CP setup and how optimized it was for the skills that I was using. And I learned a lot by that, actually. The other thing that I did was I changed my helm set out for Zan's, which is the new monster set. And it drops from Scalecoller's Peak dungeon on vet on the last boss. And the shoulders, they actually come out of the Erlag's chest, the DLC chest from the Undaunted Enclave. So with those changes, you can see I have this parse up. I was still only averaging about 26, and I was very unhappy. But what I decided to do is play around with vulnerability. And you can see here on my debuff that minor vulnerability was up 47% of the time. I didn't even save my first parse after the patch. I was just so sad. So I think it was like 20%. It was insanely low, how low vulnerability was up. But I decided to play around with it. So what I did was I went and I put on the Wise Mage set, which is the strategy set here, because the 5th item is when you damage with a fully charged heavy attack, the enemies are afflicted with minor vulnerability, and that debuff increases their damage taken by 8%. So I was hoping to replace that with the off-balance passive found in the mage's tree line right here. When you have 75 points in the ritual, you get this passive unlocked. But with the changes that Zos made to off-balance, that 10% is only up for 5 seconds. It's like up 20% of the time. You can manage to get it up a little bit higher. Like if you look at my CMX again, it was up about, oh, what's that? 19%. So yeah, 20%. It's usually around 20, 25. So I was hoping that by increasing the damage done for 10 seconds, so I was hoping that by having minor vulnerability up for 10 seconds, it would increase the damage taken by 8%. And if I did a heavy attack every 10 seconds, hopefully my aim was to keep vulnerability up all the time. The problem with doing this I ran into is you have to run 5 pieces of the Wise Mage set. And in doing that, you either lose the 5th set bonus of your other piece, which for me is Julianos, and that's 300 spell damage. That's just not an option. Or you lose your monster set. And I tried it with Lambris, taking one of the Lambris off, and it still didn't seem to do as well as running a full set of Zans. And here's why. for the two-piece set for Zans, if you damage an enemy with a light or heavy attack, you have a 20% chance to create that beam of fire. And the beam of fire does an insane amount of damage because every single second that it's going off that you don't break the beam, the damage increases by 50%. So it does more damage than Lambrus, and things can't run out of your Lambrus. It's actually up to you now to maintain that 10-meter distance, and I have not found it too hard to do, and it works really well in Maelstrom. I took it in there, and much better performance than Lambrus. But I can't lose that second piece bonus because you can still set targets or afflict them with minor vulnerability by a light attack. So you have to weave in order to optimize applying minor vulnerability. That's not the only thing though that applies it. So I'll just go to here and there's the Zan proc. Oh, I'm on flame. See, you have to do shock light attack. It applies minor vulnerability and it lasts for 3 seconds. If I do a heavy attack, not so much. There it is. It applies it on the first tick. I'm not sure what the chance is that it applies it, but if you do something like shock clench or force pulse was also setting it off, the more you can keep your vulnerability uptime, the better. See, that didn't even set him off balance. There it is again. See the off balance? I get double the resources and then it's gone. He's immune for 15 seconds. Now, it's not really showing here, but out in the world or in a dungeon or a trial, you'll see right up there, it'll say off balance immune. And it helps you to know when you can apply your and it helps you to know when to do your heavy attacks to regen your resources. But opening up the CMX again, when I went through and I made those changes, I did come have somebody run Ellie for me, but I brought my vulnerability up to 74%. So the off balance is still really low. But keeping minor vulnerability up increases that damage by 8%. You can see my Zan still was really high, but my light attacks were insane. You have to weave your light attacks in. And basically what that looks like is you'll do your first skill, light attack, skill, light attack, skill, light attack, skill, light attack, skill. And I'm bar swapping to kind of cancel that animation, but you do a light attack in between every single ability, and that's called weaving. And that's what helps keep your vulnerability up a lot. See, he's off balance. I'm going to do a heavy attack, and I went all the way up to 40-something% regen. 44% of my magicka back. So anyways, that just shows that right there, that light attack procced minor vulnerability. He's off balance. I'm going to do another heavy attack. I went from 22 to 52% of my magicka pool. So it's going to take some getting used to these new changes that Zoss made. You're going to have to pay attention to your buffs and debuffs more and time your abilities in order to manage your resources, which affects your DPS output. Because if you don't have your resources, you can't cast abilities. But yeah, if you just want to practice getting your light attacks in, make the constellation. You just want to get your light attacks in, and you want to get the add-on constellations. It's super easy. All I did was use Minion to get it. It installed it all by itself. You have to do a parse, and then you can input or import your combat metrics report, and it will pull your data. The only thing it doesn't do is the penetration. You have to manually enter that. I have it set for um, boss resistances because most of the raids that I run in, people are wearing the proper sets that they need, and then you get the bonus, the light attack, sorry, the light armor passives right here. If you're, there it is, the concentration passive. So as long as you're wearing 5 pieces of light armor, your spell pen is automatically increased by almost 5,000. But the constellations will give you a suggested tweak to your build here. I'm not going to input the data, but this will be what you have it at now, and this will be the suggested new setup. You just hit calculate. I couldn't get that to work. I don't know what it is because it is still in beta, but I made some changes to my CP, and surprisingly enough, taking a lot of points out of Thaumaturge and putting them into direct damage helped. Number one, because of weaving, and those light attacks count as direct damage. And then some of the skills that I was using, like Haunting Curse, that initial damage to the target is considered direct damage. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll keep track of them. I'm sure I forgot something. I didn't practice this at all. I just kind of winged it. Plus, if you have any useful information to pass along, that'd be great too.